Hello, wonderful person. Today I'm going to recap a mesmerizing science fiction film titled Under the Skin. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie begins with what appears to be a tiny ball of light, followed by a circular object. Amid the gloomy music, we hear a woman's voice adjusting her speech until she begins to form clear words. The light and the circular object eventually combine to form an eye. The scene changes to a long, curving road in the Scottish mountains, where we see a man on a motorcycle. The man rides his motorbike through a tunnel and comes to a stop. He then walks off the road into a ditch, reappearing moments later carrying the body of a young woman. He tosses the body into the back of a white van. The unconscious woman is then seen being undressed by another naked woman in a well-lit room. The woman dresses in the dead woman's clothes and stands over the body, staring at it. Tears roll from the eyes of the woman lying on the floor. The woman who took the clothing appears to inspect something she picked up from the body as she bends down over it. Turns out, it's an ant crawling on the woman's body. The next scene begins with a hazy sky and enigmatic lights hovering above a tall skyscraper. The mysterious female is then seen leaving a rundown house. This same white van is parked outside, and the motorbike man is there as well. The man rides away on his motorbike, while the woman gets into the white van and starts driving. The next scene begins with the mysterious young woman in a busy mall. She selects a bunch of different outfits, including a faux fur coat and red lipstick. She then drives around Glasgow in the white van, staring at men as she goes. She drives through several crowds before stopping on an empty street to approach a man walking alone. She asks him for directions to the nearby M8 motorway, and they talk. The woman does the same thing again and again. She seeks out men walking alone and asks them for directions or some other trivial question. She asks them basic questions like their names and where they are from, as well as personal questions such as if they have family or a girlfriend, which helps her understand their intentions. If the subject meets her criteria, she invites them into her van for a ride and lures them into a rundown house. Otherwise, she just drives away. Finally, she comes across a man wearing a green and white scarf who meets her requirements. She offers him a ride, and the two of them walk into an abandoned house. The scene fades to black as she seductively looks over her shoulder at the man undressing, and he follows. Once completely naked, the man approaches her as she walks away from him, but instead of getting closer, he sinks into the floor, as if it were made of liquid. It appears that the woman has hypnotized the man. When he has completely vanished into the liquid, the mysterious woman returns, picks up her clothes, and walks away. As we see her driving around in the van, the woman continues to prey on men. Soon, the alien woman is on the beach, watching a man in a wetsuit swim. She begins questioning him as soon as he arrives on shore. The swimmer reveals that he is originally from the Czech Republic and lives alone. The two are interrupted by the screams of a drowning woman. That's when a man, most likely the woman's husband, jumps into the water to help her. The swimmer follows him, while the alien woman stands there, completely ignorant of what is going on. The swimmer eventually loses sight of the woman in the water, but he manages to pull her husband to shore, only to have him rush back into the water. The swimmer, exhausted by his efforts, decides not to follow him anymore and falls to the ground. Finally, the alien woman appears, but instead of helping them, she looks around, finds a rock, and bashes the swimmer into unconsciousness. She drags the swimmer's body past the crying child, manages to get the body into the car, and drives away, unfazed by the noise. The motorbike man appears moments later and locates a tent on the beach. He folds up the tent and all of its contents and walks away, leaving the child alone. The motorbike man returns as if he was going to pick up the child, but he stops a few feet away and picks up an item of clothing that had been left behind. The woman hears crying again in the van, but when she looks out her window, she realizes she is back in the city, and the crying is coming from the vehicle next to her. A group of rowdy men on the other side of her car appear to catcall her. Later that night, as she is driving around, she notices a man walking down the street alone. She follows him to what appears to be an abandoned building until a group of women appears and insists. She joins them in the club. As she is escorted to the club, the alien appears baffled. She walks into the club, filled with loud music, flashing lights, and people. The alien woman flees through the first door she sees, but it leads to an odd lounge area, where she is yet again approached by the man who called to her from the road. He insists on buying her a drink as they dance in the club. The scene cuts to the same pitch-black room where the first man drowned into the floor. The club guy is dancing half naked, while the alien woman is undressing and seducingly staring at him. The club guy sinks into the floor, just like the first man did, staring at her so intently that he doesn't notice he's sinking. The alien woman walks away after he leaves, and the view from beneath the liquid floor shows the man staring up at her as she walks away. He is completely unaware of his surroundings until she is out of sight. He becomes aware of his surroundings, but it seems he's frozen in some way, unable to move. Suddenly, the first man who drowned shows up in front of him. However, the man who sank first looks older. His skin twists strangely on his body, and he seems to be mouthing something to the club guy, but there is no sound. The two drift together until their hands briefly touch, at which point they break away, with an expression of helplessness. At this point, the first victim's body swells, and as a sharp snap breaks the silence, his skin starts to shrink, just like a popped balloon. The empty skin floats aimlessly in the black void until it floats away, while the man from the club watches in horror. A stream of blood and debris is channeled down a belt, followed by disturbing musical tones, and soon the screen is engulfed by a bright piercing of reddish light. The next day, while the alien woman is driving around, a man in the car next to her hands her a flower. As she puts the flower down, she notices blood on her hand. Soon after, there is a radio broadcast about a body discovered washed up on the beach. The broadcast mentions a man who is on the beach with his wife and an 18-month-old child. It's the couple she saw earlier on the beach with the child. She pays attention to the broadcast but displays little emotion. Throughout the day, she focuses her attention on women and children rather than men, but she eventually finds a man. They arrive at the abandoned house, and the two are seen entering before the screen fades to black. The alien woman is later seen applying lipstick in a room with a cobbled stone floor. The motorbike guy has arrived and is pacing around her angrily. She appears to have irritated him, causing him to question her actions. He looks her in the eyes for a moment before abruptly turning away and leaving the room. While walking down the street, the woman trips and falls flat on the pavement, where she lies still until a few bystanders approach her and ask if she is okay. She appears disturbed and continues to walk while people around her are smiling, laughing, and going about their daily activities. She looks at them as if she is seeing them for the first time. Back in the van later that night, she notices a single man crossing an empty street, but decides not to approach him. That's when a young man bangs on her window, demanding that she roll it down. As she's about to roll down the window, more men arrive demanding she gets out of the van. However, she drives away, completely unaffected by the thugs. Later that night, she sees a man walking down the street alone and approaches him with the same conversation starter. She offers him a ride and starts asking him the same questions, but she doesn't seem to notice that the man is disfigured and weird-looking. The alien inquires as to when the man last touched someone and if anyone has touched him. He is nervous and unsure as she takes his hand in hers and allows him to caress her face. She leads him into the abandoned house, and as he undresses, we see exactly how disfigured he is. The alien woman then completely undresses in the all-black room before luring the disfigured man into the black liquid. After he's submerged, a slim, black skeleton appears on the screen before the scene changes to the woman walking down the stairs. She pauses and looks into a dirty mirror, staring for a long time into her own eyes. A fly tapping against the door draws her attention away. The following scene shows her leaving the run-down house with the deformed man still alive, naked, and seemingly hypnotized. She releases him as he walks naked towards a town. Later, the motorcyclist enters a housing estate and stops by a bungalow. He approaches a car in the driveway, smashes the driver's window, and presses a button to open the trunk. He then walks into the backyard, where he finds the deformed man climbing the fence. He puts him in the trunk while a neighbor watches from her window. He looks at the woman unconcerned as he drives away. Later that day, the alien woman drives to a secluded beach and stands alone in the fog. She hears birds chirping as she walks down a long abandoned dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, the motorbike man stands by the mirror of the abandoned house, searching for a clue as to what the alien woman was thinking. In the following scene, the alien woman has discovered a restaurant in the mountains. She watches the customers eating and is served a piece of a delicious chocolate cake. She takes a bite, only to spit it out immediately. Later, as she's walking through the secluded mountains, A villager informs her that the bus will be arriving soon. She waits for the bus, but appears uneasy. The bus driver casually inquires as to why she is not wearing a coat. Another man on the bus offers her his jacket, and the two walk to the grocery store together. She looks around, perplexed, as if she has never been in a store before. They eventually go to his house. As they walk together, she notices the people in the buildings around them. She watches TV with the bus driver while he eats, but her food remains untouched. After bringing her a cup of tea, the man wishes her good night. As she explores the room she is staying in and inspects her naked body, carefully looking at her legs, toes, and fingers. The scene changes to several men on motorcycles riding down a road before splitting up. It seems they are looking for someone. She goes for a walk with the bus driver the next day, and he carries her across a deep puddle. Meanwhile, the motorcyclist stops as he rides over a busy overpass and looks in both directions. The nice treatment from the bus driver makes her open up to him. Inside the house, she turns to kiss him and they start undressing. She is unsure what to do, so she lets him take control, but the intercourse is cut short when he appears to struggle as he enters her. She takes a light and looks between her legs, only to discover that her human form is incomplete. Flustered, she leaves the man's house and walks alone across a rain-soaked barren field surrounded by a vast forest. There, she meets a forest worker who starts telling her about the forest. When he does not receive a response, he wishes her well and leaves. While walking around, she eventually comes across a stone-built hiker's hut in the woods. She zips up her coat and curls up into a ball, dozing off. After some time has passed, she wakes up to find the forest worker groping her. She flees the cabin and hides for a while until she is no longer being chased. She then climbs into the driver's seat of a logging truck to protect herself. When she sees the forest worker approaching, she honks to warn anyone nearby, but no one responds, so she runs back into the forest while he follows her. He grabs her and begins violently ripping off her clothes. During the struggle, he rips not only her clothes but also her skin. It turns out she has another layer of black skin beneath her skin. He stumbles away in shock while she walks away slowly, starting to peel off her human flesh from her body. Upon peeling off all the skin, she kneels and looks at her human face still alive. The forest worker approaches her from behind, douses her in petrol, and lights a match. The alien stumbles away, carrying her ripped human flesh with her, but the flames catch up her legs as she runs across the hillside until she collapses. Standing on a hilltop far above, the motorbike man watches her. In the closing scene, the alien woman is reduced to a pile of ash, with a long shot of snow falling from the sky. With that being said, this is it for today's video. Let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.